At least 7 people, mainly students, died after a bus plunged into the sea at Rock Gutter, an area between Oweya and Fancy on the northeastern tip of St. Vincent on Monday morning. Police and government officials say that 5 bodies were recovered from the sea and 1 person died in hospital while another on way to hospital. Police are still trying to verify how many people were on the minibus when it plunged into the sea sometime between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. One police source has said that officials were not told that the minibus, which is licensed to carry 18 passengers, was full when it left Fancy, the northernmost community in St. Vincent. It is reported that the conductor was standing, a suggestion that the minibus was carrying more people than it is licensed to, a common practice in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, according to residents. Rescue and recovery efforts were affected by large waves characteristic of the Atlantic side of St. Vincent, where the terrain is an alternation of steep inclines and deep gorges and winding roads. It is not yet clear what caused the incident, but the police say that villagers were notified by people who jumped out of the vehicle before the impact. In the wake of the tragedy, the Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, has announced the postponement of his budget speech, which was scheduled for Monday afternoon. That speech will now be made on Tuesday. Well, here at home, the French Embassy and the Alliance Française of St. Lucia will pay tribute to the victims and wounded of last week's terror attacks in Paris, France. The St. Lucia tribute comes after the unparalleled mobilization of more than 4 million people in France on Sunday and thousands across the world. We hear more in this report.
The pain is still fresh outside the kosher supermarket, where one of the gunmen killed 4 Jewish hostages on Friday. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came to pay tribute to the victims, who died in a hail of bullets, as the hunt for the terrorists came to a dramatic close. Heavily armed soldiers are taking position outside Jewish schools, like this one in Paris. It's a sight the students will have to get used to, after the government announced the biggest increase in security on home soil in modern French history, including 5,000 troops at religious schools and places of worship. We have decided with the Chief of Staff to mobilize 10,000 troops who will be protecting vulnerable areas across the country from tomorrow evening. Many in the capital say they refuse to give in to fear. Je suis Charlie, I am Charlie, has become the national rallying cry, which mobilized nearly 4 million people across the country on Sunday to stand up for free speech. Around 1.5 million united in Paris alone. What a proud moment it was to be French at that rally. What struck me the most was the silence over Paris. Moments like this, thousands holding up pencils, which have become a symbol of free speech, the very thing that cost Charlie Hebdo's satirists their lives. Or this emotional meeting between the French president and the victims' families. For one day, the whole world united in solidarity with France. Landmarks from New York to London were bathed in the colors of the French flag. In Australia, hundreds of people gathered here in Sydney, itself the recent scene of a deadly terrorist attack. In Berlin, nearly 20,000 people paid their respects outside the French embassy. And in Cairo, journalists also stood up for freedom of speech, something many of them can only dream of here in their own home country. As France reels from the shock of the attack, many are now looking to the government to devise policies that will unite rather than divide the country in a national time of mourning.
And the St. Lucia tribute takes place at 5:45 p.m. on Wednesday, 14 January at the Alliance Française at Point Seraphine. The French embassy says the event will express unity and solidarity and confirm unwavering commitment to the fundamental values of democracy, being freedom of opinion and freedom of the press. A condolence book will be opened to the public at the Alliance Française. Stay with the CTV News. When we come back, St. Lucians to celebrate excellence.